Check 1 2, check 1 2. Sally, Aunt Sally. Sally.
Hello, Sally. Oh, okay.
Sally.
This is a good little intro track. Got me jumping.
Yeah.
We need headphones?
Yeah, I got them.
Here, we can take some from here as well. Make sure that all of them have some. Yeah, we can here too. Thank you.
I need the port too, the converter. Yeah, we should have a more rigorous preparation each week.
So Ty obviously isn't here yet. I know that he was planning on getting here right at 6-ish,
Okay.
which is fine because I don't have him going on until after AccuRegi. So Pat, we're just gonna talk about what we saw at the draft.
Okay.
For the first
I can spitball.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I will essentially be kind of delaying things until they get here.
If worse comes to worse, do you want to talk about one of the songs and play it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If the conversation gets really dry about the NFL draft, we can do that. When they get in here is when I'm going to play AccuRegi, so that we have time. I have 3 minutes to then talk to them while we're off air.
Okay.
But that's my plan.
Okay. Cool.
And then I have these, these events, which I'm going to lead off with this package that Vanessa gave us to use.
Sweet. Yeah, that was good that we got that this week because it's a slow week.
Oh, I know.
Photographer Jeffrey Stockbridge.
Great. All right, we got a minute and a half. You're listening to WPPM FM Philadelphia.
There has not been a day when I don't think about your name. All the time, every time, every night.
Good evening, everybody. You're listening to Spirit News Radio, your home for hyperlocal news in the communities of North Philadelphia. My name is Max Pulcini. I'm the managing editor and your host for the evening, and this track is called Mischief by Bluebird. And tonight I'm joined by Patrick Clark, Thomas Beck. We got Ty Walker and our special guest Jasmine Smith joining us in just a bit. Now this I don't know. This song's got me feeling a little mischievous, like its name.
Oh yeah.
How are you guys? What's up, Pat? What's up, Tom?
Doing good.
well. How about you?
Yeah.
You know, I can't complain. Today's a good Wednesday.
Yeah. The sun came out. I made a terrible mistake this morning. I
You had a Job moment?
not a joke. I exited the house with just a t-shirt and jeans on this morning, and I realized I made a horrible mistake. Luckily, the sun came out right before I had to ride my bike here, so I'm feeling good.
Oh, you rode your bike down.
I did, yeah.
Dude, it is quite the season to be riding a bike outside. I was actually talking to Beck before we got here. I was thinking about riding down instead of driving, but
You decided against that.
I couldn't
Yes.
pass up the opportunity to ride in a car with Mr. Thomas Beck.
Yeah, yeah.
You
so-
could turn that down.
Yeah, good call.
Who would I talk to in my head? You know. A little bit about us. We have a fun show planned for tonight. We are Spirit News Radio. We are a hyperlocal news outlet out of North Philadelphia. You can check us out in print at the Spirit of the River Wards newspaper, distributed in Fishtown, Northern Liberties, Kensington, Port Richmond, and Bridesburg. And you can check out our entire coverage of our North Philadelphia communities at www.spiritnews.org. You can also check us out right here on WPPM every Wednesday night from 6 to 7 p.m., where you can listen to us talk about all sorts of things, including what we're about to get into right now. So, come on in. So last week was the NFL draft in Philadelphia, which was a huge event. It was like the third huge national event we've had in the city of brotherly love in the past couple years, right after the Pope and the DNC. And so last week the NFL brought in the draft with this huge draft experience. They essentially took over the entirety of the Parkway and the Art Museum to usher in the newest era of NFL stars. And we're joined by Ty Walker as well. What's up, Ty?
How you doing?
We're doing
Ty.
good, man. We're doing good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We're just getting into the NFL draft. And just a little bit of background on it. According to the NFL, attendance for the NFL draft and the NFL draft experience in Philadelphia drew nearly 250,000 fans over the entirety of the 3-day event, which actually surpassed the pre-draft projections of 200,000. So a lot of people showed up. And the Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau projected that the event would have an $80 million economic impact on the city. But, a spokesman for the Bureau said the total economic impact of the draft will actually take some time to calculate, so we don't have the actual numbers. Now, I don't think I'm alone in this room in thinking that 80 million was pretty crazy of a number to hit. But, I know that I was there. I know Pat was there. Ty, did you have a chance to stop at the draft?
I wasn't able to.
You weren't, and
Bummer.
I know Beck wasn't either.
Yes, I avoided that whole area.
But I don't know if we brought in $80 million, but I do know that it was a pretty successful event, at least from my eyes. I thought it was really well managed, really well handled. I saw a lot of people out there having a good time. Only saw one fight almost break out. It didn't actually even happen. So I give props to the fans for keeping their cool. I don't know, Pat, what was your experience like?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier this week. I unfortunately didn't have as good of an experience. I don't think that I spent the correct. I wasn't there at the right hours.
Right.
I was there only for the first round selections, and that was Thursday night.
Okay.
And I was there mostly just to take photos in case we ran a story in the Spirit, which we ended up not doing. It was covered pretty comprehensively, but I was there, just came with two of my photographer friends, and we were just walking around taking photos, trying to get really close to the stage.
Right.
Unfortunately, that was not a possibility. We spent at least 15 to 30 minutes trying to push our way to the front. I've done a good amount of concert photography. I'm kind of used to that. Even though I had that prior experience, it was still a different beast.
Right.
I was really kind of frustrated at the stage setup. It was in sort of a U shape coming outwards towards the audience. And what that did, I know why they did that. It made sense for their media teams, and it made sense for the VIPs to be closer to the stage. But us plebeians, us plebeians were forced into the rabble. And unless you were directly center stage, I found that it was impossible to see anything.
Yeah. I can see how nobody could see.
You can see how we could not see.
Yes.
But overall, like the stage was awesome. Like it looked really cool. The lights, like the pick is in kind of like graphics that would come up, like
The sound effect.
countdowns, the sound effects. It was really just like a cool, like it looked awesome. But you know, it still, I was a little disappointed in that. Also, I couldn't hear anything. Like,
Yeah, they did
audio
have
mixing was
trouble
poor.
amplifying anything pretty much.
Yeah, and that might have improved throughout the weekend. I was only there the first night, but I heard that the activities were really cool. I didn't get a chance to check them out, and they were more kid oriented. But like they looked awesome. Like there's a zip line, there was like high jump.
They had like the NFL Combine
Yeah,
experience where
it
you
was
could
the
throw
Combine
passes and
experience.
jump over stuff. And I just want to say we actually have a little bit of listener feedback right now.
Oh, really?
And one of our buddies, one of our fellow Spirit Newsers, Steve Bonell, just chimed in to say that this Patrick Clark has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to the NFL. So shout out to Steve Bonell.
You know, Steve. Next time you contact us, maybe you should actually add to the discussion. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, like, I totally understand your gripes with the draft, Pat. I did have a bit of a different experience. I got there a little bit earlier, so I was able to secure some prime real estate front and center. I wasn't like super up front on the first day. I was set a little bit further back, right by the General Washington statue, right there.
Yeah, I was pretty close to that too.
And you couldn't really hear them, but most of the crowd wasn't concerned with hearing; they were more concerned with booing, which is the most Philadelphian thing ever. It was great.
I did participate in the booing of Roger Goodell. That was, that's like a rite of passage. I feel like
It was really really impressive. I think impressive is the only word we can use to
totally,
explain how relentless the Philly crowd was with their boos of not only the commissioner but of the Cowboys fans, the Giants. There was some funny like moments of camaraderie, like when Andy Reid's Chiefs traded up to the top 10 to pick up a quarterback, and that kind of gave us hope that one of the players that Philly wanted was going to be there at 14. The Eagles ultimately went with a defensive end. What was
Derek
his name?
Barnett.
Derek
Oh, yeah,
Barnett out of Tennessee.
he's a good player.
He's a good player. It was
He's a good
met.
player.
It was met with a lukewarm reception. I think people
A lot of people booed. And just like I felt bad for him. Like I like he's a super talented football player, like following his dreams, and people booed him. I know that's like, it's part of the culture. Like Donovan McNabb was booed.
Oh, that was that.
That was
a
much
very
worse,
special-
apparently.
Yeah,
That was a very
brutal.
special
Much worse.
instance. Yeah, the Dirty 30, Angelo Cataldi and his gang showing up at the Radio City Music Hall. They wanted Ricky Williams. Well, we all know how that ended out. I think my experience was pretty flawless. I'd say had some time to get there a little bit earlier. Enjoyed the festivities, the tents. Checked out WIP's tent. That was pretty neat. But I really do think that overall it was a success, and I really do think this is something that will be back next year. If you had to ask me on my hunch, I would say that the NFL and the city are going to angle pretty hard to get this thing back.
Yeah, I think they're
next
going
year
for that
before
second year
moving on.
option.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk that Dallas is in the running for the next draft, outdoor draft. Well, Dallas sucks. Just putting it out there. And it would be great if we had another year. I don't know. What do you guys think? Would you guys be down for another year of NFL draft in Philadelphia, or do you think this is better off going to, all right, not Dallas, but anywhere else?
I think that, sorry Tom,
go ahead.
I think that, like, considering how successful it was compared to, I mean, for the city as a whole compared to the Pope visit, incredible, like so cool, but it did have some issues with how it affected local businesses, as Tom touched upon previously. And it seemed like this was better for the local economy. So given that, I think they're going to push for it a lot harder
Right.
than they might have if it wasn't as successful.
What do you think, Beck?
At the risk of sounding apathetic, this didn't affect my life at all, so I really don't care if they bring it back or not. I don't know. I mean, maybe when they find out how much revenue it actually generated, then maybe I'll change my mind about
Right.
it. So if it was a significant amount of money, then yeah, I'd definitely suggest that they come back.
What do you think, Ty?
I'd say you'd have to give me another chance.
Yeah.
Chance to
Yeah,
show
man,
up.
you missed out. You got to check it out next year, hopefully.
Yeah.
What? How come busy working? Why didn't you make it down? Was it just a pain to get into the city?
I had a family matter.
There you
Came
go.
up.
There you
It
go.
happens.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. You know, whether it comes back next year or not. I'm rooting for it. I'm sure a lot of Philly fans are rooting for it, and I really want to catch up with our resident in Fairmount, our friend Sam Hollischutz out there in Fairmount.
Yeah, I didn't see him.
He was on our show 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about how excited we were. I really want to follow up with him and see if he can give us his thoughts on the matter. Yeah. So I think we have our guest here. Yeah, come on in. We have a special guest, Jasmine Smith from the Strawberry Mansion Girls Lacrosse team. Yeah, have a seat. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Sorry for being late.
Yeah, no problem at all. Just have a seat, throw your headphones on, and we're gonna move on right now to our next segment. We're done talking about NFL draft for I guess another 12 months at this point, right?
Yeah. I said
There was
about
enough
it.
of that in the media that we won't talk about it again
Yeah.
until they announce where it's going next year. But we're moving on to our next segment, which is my favorite segment of the night. It is our AccuReggie weather report. Yes, that was a drum roll. If you guys didn't hear it out there in Radio Land, yes, the Spirit News has our own weatherman. His name is Reggie Smith, and he is the bomb. He goes by AccuReggie on the internet, and you can check out his weather reports online at spiritnews.org. Every Wednesday, you can check out his daily tweets. Here's what Reggie had to say this week.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to AccuReggie of the Spirit News, here to bring you the weather. Last week was gorgeous. As advertised, temperatures stayed in the 80s most of the week. In fact, on Saturday, Philadelphia officially made it up to 88, and many places were near 90. Unbelievable for late April. But this week, as we head further into May, we flip the script completely. The weather turns on its head. There seems to be no rhyme or rhythm to the weather pattern we're in. It's basically just be as crazy as you can be. That's the weather pattern we're in. Just go as crazy as you can. That's what the weather's doing. Because this week is going to be cold, chilly, rainy, and cloudy. The exact opposite of last week. Let's dive right into it. So today, temperatures were cooler in the 60s. We did see some sunshine. Now, tomorrow, Thursday, is going to be the nicest day of the week. Temperatures will moderate up to near 70. Most places, though, will top out in the middle 60s. Okay? Now, Friday. Friday is the big transition day. A large storm comes up from the south, brings torrential rain. Friday is the big rain day. It should rain just about from start to finish of the daytime hours. So that means your morning commute on Friday will be wet. Temperatures will be fairly warm, up to near 70, before the cold front comes in behind the storm, dropping temperatures at night down into the 50s and setting us up for a cooler Saturday. And this is where things get ugly. And I mean really ugly. Because Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and even beyond this 7-day forecast period look cool, cloudy, with showers, damp, dreary, ugly, and just frustrating for early May. So we're going to get through it, but I'm just letting you know we have some rough weather ahead. So the details: Saturday, high temperatures only in the lower 60s, and there will be some showers around, especially in the afternoon. Sunday is probably the coldest day of the week. I don't think temperatures get out of the 50s. If you can imagine 53 degrees on 3 p.m. on Sunday, you're going to need a jacket. Some people might even need a coat, and at night, we're going to drop down some places in the 30s. Philly will probably get down to 40 or so. And that is going to be a shock to our system because we're so used to the warm weather, particularly with this past week. We're so used to the 80s. All right, so now Monday, we continue cool, temperatures to the upper 50s. Once again, more showers. Tuesday, another chance for showers and temperatures in the lower 60s. We might actually hit 60 on Tuesday. Whoop-de-doo, let's celebrate. Well, it looks like it's going to be rough after Friday, so enjoy Thursday because from there, kind of goes downhill, but it will get warm, and that is what we have to remind ourselves as we're going through this stretch. And this is all compliments of what's called a negative NAO. I won't bore you with the details of what that means, but basically it's a traffic jam in the atmosphere. Weather typically moves very quickly from west to east across the country, but this time there is a traffic jam way up north of us in Canada and far removed toward Greenland. Okay, there's a traffic jam, and that's backing our weather up on the East Coast, so the storm that comes through on Friday literally sits and spins over us for days. So if anybody asks you, if you're talking with family, friends, or coworkers, hey, why is it so cloudy and rainy? Just tell them there's a traffic jam in the atmosphere. Well, folks, that's all for now. We'll get through this, and I'll keep you updated with the daily weather updates at Spirit News, at AccuReggie on Twitter, and AccuReggie on Facebook. So I'll keep you posted because, as you know, the weather always changes.
And that was AccuReggie. Now, this is the only time where I think a hyperlocal news show will mention Greenland and traffic jams in the atmosphere. I love that guy. Though I got to say, this weather report has me a little bummed out. I don't like rain. I don't like dreariness.
Not happy about that.
No, sad.
I don't mind
the
it.
40 degrees is really bumming me out.
I don't mind the rain and the cold. Makes me want to stay inside. It just makes me feel cozy.
I don't mind it
It
so much.
justifies your ways.
Yeah, it allows me to stay inside and do nothing. So yeah,
I'm just not excited for the shock of it. The massive changes. I'm okay with rain.
Yeah.
But it's the temperature drop I'm not about.
I feel forced to stay inside.
Yeah.
Close to full.
So, as you heard Reggie, you can check him out at AccuReggie on Twitter. You can look at him on Facebook, AccuReggie. And he also tweets from the at the Spirit News handle every morning with your daily weather updates. Thanks a bunch, Reg. Really appreciate what you do. Moving on to our main segment of the evening. We have a very special guest here in the studio with us. We have Jasmine A. Smith, the lacrosse coach at Strawberry Mansion High. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming by. Jasmine is a resident of Bryn Mawr and attended college at Kutztown before finishing off at Westchester. Now, as I said, she is the coach of the Strawberry Mansion High School girls lacrosse team. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I am originally from North Philly. I was born at North Philly 29th in Hollywood Street off of Master. And then segued out to Radnor Township when I was around 4. My mother was diagnosed with MS and multiple sclerosis, and so we lived with my grandparents. And from second grade all the way up into college, I played field hockey, lacrosse, and basketball. My grandmother was the one that introduced me to both field hockey and lacrosse, ironically.
Interesting.
And so it's crazy. I'll never forget the first day that she picked me up from school to go to practice. And I saw all these sticks and girls that I were my friends. And I'm like, what's going on here? I want to do double dutch and, everything else. And she was basically like, I'll see you in an hour. So from that moment on, I really, got invested in the sport. And what they saw was that I needed some type of outlet. With my mom being diagnosed and, with both MS and being blind, there was some trauma that was starting to set in. And they really were able to identify that one, music, because I'm a trained pianist as well. Oh, wow. And then sports would be able to be my outlet. And they were really able to, to do that. So from that, I got to travel across the country, even going out internationally and playing. And it just opened up and afforded opportunities that most traditional sports don't do.
Right. Well, so let's get into that. I mean, lacrosse is definitely not the most traditional sport when it comes to inner cities.
No, it's not.
I mean, I grew up in the suburbs. I played lacrosse, and a lot of people out there know it, but I remember the first time I went out into a North Philly park and I brought my lacrosse stick when I was in college and was throwing around. All the local kids were like, "What is that? What are you playing?"
Yeah.
What was it like when you first were introduced, when you were first shown a stick and taught to catch and cradle? What was that like for you?
I cried.
Like,
It's really hard.
It was really hard. I mean, you have to think, one, being African American in a very affluent, mainline suburban
Right.
area. And then you see girls that have been participating probably like 2 years prior before because they're starting early.
Yeah.
For me, it was very difficult to gauge. And that's why I was crying literally for an hour. And then I really didn't start to really fall in love with the sport until maybe 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
I had a really good coach. Her name was Sue, who was able to really utilize the fact of my athleticism to my advantage. And then make it fun. And then literally one day it just snapped. And, for me, it was just like game over.
Yeah.
And so when I would have friends and family from, North and West Philly and Mount Airy to come visit, I would always grab my additional sticks, like, let's play. And they were very confused, but then they knew every time they came over, we weren't just going to play regular games. We were going to do field hockey or lacrosse, so.
And, I feel like, the women's game is almost more challenging than the men's game because the pocket is so, it's not as deep.
Exactly.
So when it comes to catching, it's even more frustrating using a women's lacrosse stick.
Yeah, they've made it like a lot better. When I played, of course, it started out with wooden sticks, and then gauged into plastic where you have both. And so now you rarely see the wooden; everything is dominated by plastic.
Right.
But they've made ramifications in terms of the pocket, but yet and still it's still more difficult. The girls only have eye goggles. Now
Right.
they're presenting helmets for women lacrosse players and mouth guards. And so needless to say, you have to be on your ones and twos, to make sure that ball is not coming, directly at you.
Now, we have a lot of Philadelphia residents listening to our show right now. Give us a crash course. Explain lacrosse to somebody who doesn't know what lacrosse is.
Lacrosse is basically, I always say, lacrosse is a stick with a net. And
Yeah.
it's pretty much that simple. You've got to be able to catch, and then run. And if you have those two components, then, for us, we're able to work with you and, really help you gauge and learn the game and dominate.
Nice. Now, how'd you get into coaching? I mean, we know how you got into getting into the sport and that you played and you had a lot of opportunities. But how'd you get into coaching and giving back and teaching that sport to others?
So basically, my grandparents were from the South, and so they used to have a motto that they always used to say, you help someone along the way. And my grandfather made a very big impression that, I was going to get the best education from going to Radnor schools, from kindergarten all the way up to high school. But, your responsibility is to make sure that you are helping those in the community. And so we never really deferred from being African Americans just in the suburbs. Our family's church is in 20th and Dolphin, which is in North Philly. Our circle in terms of West, North, and Mount Airy. So it's that nucleus. So literally, when I came home, I used to work for Kobe Bryant for about 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so I came home when my mother was kind of getting ill, and basically I started Icons, which is a sports league for inner city youth, African American Latino kids. For girls now, boys will be coming up this summer.
Oh, great.
And so from ages 5 through 19, really just to stretch and expose and to give them access to playing field hockey and lacrosse. And so I started, and then I revamped the program in 2013. And from that date, we've had close to almost 300 kids participate in our club team. And then we go through charter and public schools to start teams, as we did with Strawberry Mansion and other various schools.
So let's talk about Strawberry Mansion. Ty, do you, I mean, you're working on a story right now kind of explaining Jasmine's story. Do you have any questions regarding Strawberry Mansion? Like, I guess my question is, how did it start there and why there?
Well, ironically, my mom, she graduated Strawberry Mansion Junior High School in 1970.
Okay.
So it was like, kind of like full circle. One morning I woke up, I was going on my way to University of Penn to do a coaches symposium. And I woke up and, Facebook, the first thing that you see, and I see this video of Diane Sawyer's segment. And it's basically, in regards to it being the top dangerous school in the country.
Right.
And I'm looking at it because I know the area, but something, I don't know, for whatever reason that morning, it hit like my heart and I was sick. And I wanted to rush so badly to Strawberry Mansion that I was about to cancel out.
Wow.
On the coaches symposium. And so ironically, I ran into the former athletic director, Robert Coleman, and I expressed to him and said, hey, look, I need my program at the school. I think it could help these girls. And so he called Principal Wayman. And the next day I was meeting with her for 2 hours. And the following week we had 30-something girls sign up.
Wow, just like that overnight.
It was overnight, yeah. And so, after that, it was pressure. There's a movie called Lean on Me.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I walked into. These girls were very, they were interested, but they were trying to figure out exactly what my angle was.
Right.
So many disappointments happen with inner city kids that they lend themselves to being adults before they're ever children. And so for me, it took literally 2 months for me to allow them to be safe. In regards to I'm here. And I would always express to them, there's a system designed for you to fail. Allow these two sticks, both field hockey and lacrosse, be your catalyst and your platform. So
that's awesome.
Thank
Ty,
you.
you have any questions?
No, I'm just listening. I mean, she's been full of surprises since I met her. Like, I'm still stuck on the Kobe Bryant thing.
Yeah, I mean, tell me about just the first practice. What was it like when you first handed a stick over to one of these girls?
Well, the first practice, I walked in, and I'll never forget, we were in the gym. We didn't have a field. That's the thing. We didn't have a home field. I didn't know exactly where we were going to, I just wanted to jump in. So we were in the gym. And so one of the things that I do in my curriculum, both in our club teams and our schools, is that I have a mirror. It's a very tall mirror. And so basically, a part of the curriculum that I created for Icons is really based upon like how my grandparents raised me. And so the mirror signifies, doing I am affirmations. I can't teach you a sport that you don't know if you don't have a sense of yourself, because most kids, as you already know from playing the sport, have a very understanding, concrete of who they are. Some will call it entitled. I just call it self-worth. And so the mirror represents to look at yourself and identify really who you are. And so what should have probably taken 20 minutes took probably like an hour, because it was the first time that someone had asked these girls, who are you? Look in the mirror, say, I am, and then say the affirmation, whether it's powerful, bold, courageous, intelligent, but they could not do it. There were some that could, but it was very challenging for a lot. Right. And so that was the first step. And then I slowly introduced, field hockey. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. They were like, who is getting hit? What's going on? But the crazy part is that no matter how much they complained, no matter how much they challenged me, they kept showing up.
Right.
So that was the indicator.
Commitment.
Yeah. That was the indicator for me that, like, if you show up, I show up. And I will always tell them, if you meet me halfway, then I will do the rest. I will provide you with everything that you need as far as scholarships, opportunities, camps, seeing life from a different lifestyle. Yeah. And so they just kept showing up, and I just kept meeting them halfway. And, that's why they were able to instill to this day, utilize this as their platform.
Now let's talk about getting athletes aside, getting the program started. An athletic program, and you totally know what's going on in the school district. There is no money, and athletic programs cost a lot of it, whether it's equipment, field time, insurance, and all those other things that go along with making sure that everybody is safe and has the proper equipment. Not to mention paying you for your own time and effort. What was it like starting up a program from the ground up in a district that doesn't have money to support that kind of thing?
It was challenging. I mean, at the end of the day, you have demographics and certain pools of the city of Philadelphia that, do a lot themselves as far as financially. Right. And then you have pockets of Strawberry Mansion, where they don't have the access.
Yeah.
And so you're making pleas, and, you're advocating, from the standpoint of, if we do A, B, and C, then we're able to then save, a certain proportion of these girls. Because the newest pipeline for incarceration are African-American girls. Right. And so going to those in the political realms, those going to, the school district and other corporate sponsors, really to say, look, they need your investment. And, it was difficult, still is very difficult. Yeah. For me, I have to fight for these girls every day.
Yeah.
And that is different than my club team. I fight for them. But these girls come from all over. They come from the suburbs. They come from West Philly, South Philly, Mount Airy, Shellham. But our Strawberry Mansion girls, I have to fight tooth and nail. For whatever reason, they are the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
That no one really cares to speak about and to know about. And so I try to utilize the fact that my PR marketing background to the advantage to help their stories get out there, because I also know what that can do for them, going forward in their futures. So.
Yeah, this story reminds me a lot of a story near and dear to my heart, and that's the Kensington High School football team. Do you know about their story?
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know listening, Kensington never had a high school football team, and it wasn't until at this point probably 6 or 7 years ago that a neighborhood guy, Elwood Erb, who was from the neighborhood, went to college, moved to Hawaii, and then came back because he decided he wanted to teach kids. He came back and realized, I want to put this upon myself to start this program, and with the same mission in mind. You want to teach these kids that there is value to them and they can achieve as long as you give them the right tools and outlet to do so. And I remember I actually did a documentary film on Herb and the Kensington football team, and a lot of that funding came out of pocket from the coach, from family members, from not from the district or the state, because those funds just simply aren't there. And their program still exists to this day because of the hard work put forth by that original batch of players and Coach Herb, wanting to make it happen. This story has the same, foundations written all over it.
Thank
So
you.
it really, I think things are pointing in a positive direction for you and your squad for sure.
Thank you.
Let's talk sports. How is the team? Last year was the first year, right?
Last year was their first year.
I'm sure there's growing pains associated with any first
There
year.
definitely was. I mean, we had a lot of challenges. One with the school district, just in regards to taking these girls seriously. You have to think about the scope of America, and in all reality, you have an African American team in the heart of North Philly that have never played before, and the resistance that was met at the table was very challenging. And so it was one opportunity for these girls to utilize their resiliency to their advantage. There were many times that games were canceled without prior knowledge. I remember going into the field hockey season, and the girls only had 4 games per, the rest of the teams in the school district having between 14 to 18.
Right.
And so, I'll never forget, we were at Germantown Super Site, and for whatever reason, there was a miscommunication. And so the game had been transferred, but we never knew about it.
Oh, wow.
The girls were devastated. And it was the first time that I had seen the girls in the capacity where they're like, this is our future. This is not fair. And so while I got them on the bus, and I said, all right, guys, and they were upset. They were like, Coach, you're going to have to go to City Hall. You're going to have to go to school district. Because they knew, every day I would be coming from practice, and they'd be like, what's wrong? And I was like, had a meeting, and I'm advocating for you guys. And so they were like, you got to call. And I said, Coach is not calling anyone. Said, you guys are calling. I said, your collective voice collectively together speaks more volumes than mine could ever be.
Right.
And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, research the politicians in your district. And so, a few of them that were seniors started to, research. And I said, now, you call this person, you call this person. And literally when I turned around on the bus, I thought I was at the Hillary Clinton campaign office. It was absolutely insane. And at first they were scared. They're like, well, what did we say? And I said, well, tell
them how you feel.
Tell them how you feel. Tell them how, the same way that you talk to us, tell them. And literally they got on the phone. And then after they called each one, they switched. They were like, and it lasted for about 2 weeks. I mean, they'd be in lunch period, and they'd be like, I just emailed somebody. And, the sad part is that they never got any response back.
That says a lot.
Yeah, from the federal all the way down to the city. They never got any responses back. So it kind of showed them again that their voices were not heard, and nobody really cared that much to really figure out exactly what kind of resolution to be carried. But I think the greatest lesson for them was, at that point in juncture, was no matter what, you continue. You continue to stride.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a very important lesson to have. And, there's so many comparisons here with your experience and what I saw with the Kensington team.
Yeah.
I remember going to Washington, D.C. with a camera and about 8 kids to meet with Senator Bob Brady.
Wow.
And we were in his office, and, Coach and the kids explained that, we play on a practice field made out of rocks and glass and old railroad ties. And, Brady said that he would do everything in his power. He was going to talk to his, quote, Eagles guys to make something happen. And that was 2013, 4 years ago. And that field, if you want to call it that, is still in the same dilapidated shape. Despite that, now I'm not going to say it was a political promise that Senator Brady made, but he looked into the eyes of kids from the neighborhood and said, I'll see what I can do. We never heard back from him.
Yeah.
And that's really discouraging. But point is, Coach kept on, the kids kept on, and I'm sure you're going to keep on keeping on despite,
I think even with that, Coach, one of the things that I realized in this life, and especially coaching, you're always going to be faced with opposition.
Yeah.
And, we just recently faced the opposition this past week, and I said, this is your time to show up. You made a commitment to be here. If you want a better life, no matter if you continue playing or not, going forward in college, then, you have to realize that you're paving the way for the next generation.
Right.
That means that the baby that is not born yet, that means the one that is in elementary school, middle school, or even the one that is in high school with you that is afraid because, once again, it's not a sport that is geared towards you.
Right.
And I said, this is your opportunity to show face. And so for me, I'm sure like the coach, we could definitely respond in different ways. But the best response is to teach them how to respond.
Right.
They're so used to anger. They're so
Right.
used to, putting as the kids, they putting hands on you, that, for me in our curriculum, we try to show them the different way. We have a curriculum where we do yoga and meditation, where
wow.
during practice, we teach them how to then tune in.
Right.
We have healthy eating, so we have a partnership with Trader Joe's and Aldi's where we have the kids eating healthy. They're so used to the corner stores, so during practice, we're like, okay, try a sweet potato tortilla chip. And they're looking at us like we're crazy, but then halfway through, they're like, this is good.
They're actually tasty.
Exactly. We do a circle time where we have the girls put a tiara on.
Uh-huh.
And we ask them, what does this tiara mean to you, as far as being a queen? And so they're learning now how to restructure their life. But once again, when they're faced with politicians or life in general, we're giving them the tools. The cross and field hockey are the foundation, just like with any other sport. But then you have to incorporate them for them to be abiding great citizens.
Right.
So then they can come back and do the very thing that you're doing or something greater.
Right.
We have a term in our league. It's called stand on our shoulders and rise. So no matter who you are, if you're doing something significant or something great, on the greater, whether it's a community or even an international realm, be better than me. I don't
Right.
want my girls to be subservient. I want them to rise to the point where I look at them and I'm like, I am completely proud of all the things that you've gone through, but yet and still someone's going to be able to stand on your shoulders and rise higher.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Thank
really,
you.
I mean, it's so important. I really can't stress enough being around inner city athletics and seeing how strapped the budget is, how so many of these kids don't have these opportunities. It's so important to give them to all kids. I feel bad sometimes having grown up in the suburbs and having played in front of on a stadium,
No, you
in front of
shouldn't.
people. And seeing it now, and I know you're right.
Because the reality is this: I feel like your opportunity and you were afforded something, and
Yeah.
so then you were able to utilize what was gifted to you, then to tell the story because you could see it from a different scope.
All right.
For me, born on 29th and Hollywood and Master, like that whole circumference. But the thing is that it was really designed. God really allowed me to then live out there, because if I had not played those sports or lived that lifestyle, I then could not then come back and to do the very things that I do. The girls are very confused with me because they're like, we don't know if you're suburban or city because you come out every once in a while together, and so for me it's like that balance, so I'm grateful for those experiences because
Uh-huh.
I get it, I get what we're seeing. So
Well, that's what make me feel better about myself.
of
I really
course,
appreciate that.
that's what we do.
Yeah, look at that. You're
Normally we just make Max feel bad about
Right.
himself.
lacrosse coach, life coach. I need to have you around more often, Jasmine.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
So how's the season going this year?
The season's good. The girls just won Friday, it was 9-4. We played Del Val, and it was amazing because we had a shortage of girls.
Okay.
You know, the one thing about, you know, having
Man down.
ladies were all the way down. I mean, you know, we had about 9 girls that played. So we were really down, and pretty much we went out there, and I said, you have an opportunity to prove everybody wrong, you know, but you have an opportunity to rise above, you know, what, you know, the word is. And so they went out there, and, you know, I was just like, said my prayers, and literally within the first 5 minutes, they scored. And then it was like back to back. And the other coach, who was livid, he was so confused because initially it was, you know, the 9 versus 9. And then before I knew it, like, he had put all the girls, you know, technically on the field. And so I called a timeout, and I said, hey, look, I said, you know, the whole field is like filled now. And they were like, we know. And they went back out there, and they just they were relentless, you know. And it was beautiful to see because ESPN was segmenting the story. And so, you know, they were completely confused with what was going on because, once again, we were down. And these girls showed like what grit, what commitment, what resiliency really looks like. And one of the things that I told them during halftime, I said, it doesn't matter who's here. It's a matter who shows up.
That's good.
And then, you know, they just proved everybody wrong. And I mean, when they won, you would have thought we won the NCAA title. You know, so yeah.
That's amazing. What a great story. How much time is left in the season? I'm sure it's
We
kind of
have
winding down, right?
It's a lining down. We have about 6 more games.
Okay.
You know, the one thing that is unfortunate that these girls are only playing the girls in certain teams. So they're playing Frankfurt, they're playing West Mastery, they're playing Del Val. West Philly doesn't have a team anymore, and so pretty much that's who they're playing.
Right.
They're not playing the Northeast, the Girls High, the Central teams, and that in itself is, you know, a bit of a conversation piece in itself. So
Right. So how can people learn more about the team? How can they learn more about you, and how can they help out?
We always need help, of course, you know, financially, like I said, the sector of Strawberry Mansion and some of the other pockets, you know, that we have programming at always needs help. So, you know, we do fundraisers, but again, because of the lack of, you know, funding through the school district, state, and even with the city, it makes it very difficult to make sure that, you know, these kids have accessibility, because the programming is there, and they want it, you know, very badly. I went into a school actually on a part of Temple, Bethune, and 60 kids signed up, and you know, within 2 hours, you know, we did a small clinic, and these kids were like picking up field hockey and lacrosse sticks after we had demonstrated what to do, and they were zoned, and they were like, when are you coming back? I want to do this. And then when I told them, I was like, you have the opportunity then to go to college, you know, you have the opportunity to do A, B, and C. They were like, game on, you know. So but iconsportsleague.com, you can find us. You can find Icons on, it's EYEKONZ, sportsleague.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're, you know, in all the social media realms. And then my email is icons, EYEKONZ, fieldhockey@gmail.com. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
Well, it's amazing the work you're doing, Jasmine.
Thank you.
This is really important stuff. You know, giving kids these opportunities and outlets in Philadelphia, especially at a time where it seems like no one else is providing anything to them. It's really amazing work.
Thank you. I'm
And
humbled.
you know, you got another fan here. I mean,
Aw,
Strawberry
thank
Mansion
you.
Lacrosse all the way.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely keep us posted on when we can check out, you know, matches. And I know Ty's going to be writing a story.
Yeah.
I know you've been to a game already so far this year, right?
Yep. Me and Pat.
So yeah, right.
I was
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
So we're really looking forward to telling your story.
And come
even
out.
more.
We have Olympic Day with the International Olympic Association. We were chosen as a host site June 18th. It will be located at 33rd and Diamond.
Oh, great.
Stretching down. It'll be about 30 to 40 games being played throughout the day.
Oh wow.
Musical performances. USA field hockey will be there. U.S. lacrosse. Some former Olympians. You know, NBA players. vendors. So it'll be like a whole festival for the community, really showcasing what field hockey and lacrosse is doing across the board for these kids. So
That's
I
awesome.
definitely invite you guys to come out,
Certainly,
and participate.
certainly.
And stuff like that. And a special shout out to United Women's Lacrosse League. I just accepted a job for diversity inclusion officer. So
Congratulations.
thank you. It's basically the professional league for NFL, NBA, but for women's lacrosse. So all these girls that are playing, that get into college, I will be then able to then help them play on a professional level.
That's awesome. Jasmine, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
again.
Yeah, thank you,
please
Jasmine.
please
Thank you.
stay in touch.
I will.
We really appreciate you coming on, and we'd love to continue to tell your story.
Thank you.
And shout out to any of the girls lacrosse team listening, I guess, right?
Yes. Shout out to you guys.
Very good, very good. So we're kind of winding down here. I have a bit to play. We have a story about an upcoming photo exhibition by Courtney Harris Bond. She got a chance to speak with Jeffrey Stockbridge, the photographer behind the Kensington Blues series. So we're gonna play a little something about that right now.
Started taking portraits of sex workers and drug users along Kensington Avenue in the wake of the economic downturn.
I came out here, not knowing what I was going to do. And then I became so captivated by people that were just living in the harshest circumstances. And I really thought it was necessary and important to, in a singular, direct way, investigate what that really meant.
5 years later, Stockbridge was still investigating this Philadelphia neighborhood, one that drug enforcement agents have said is home to the largest open-air heroin market on the East Coast. So it took a while for Stockbridge to grow what he calls his legs in the neighborhood.
First time I drove down Kensington Avenue, I was too scared to get out of the car. Every woman on every corner was making eyes at me. They thought I was going to pick them up. Because here I am, a single man, long hair, big beard, driving a beat-up black sedan. I fit the profile, the kind of guy that would pick them up.
But pretty soon, Stockbridge and his work became well known in Kensington. He gained the trust of locals through long conversations about their lives in the neighborhood and by showing them photos he'd taken of abandoned buildings and residents in West Philadelphia for his Drexel University senior thesis project. A couple of years into his work in Kensington, Stockbridge began publishing his images of sex workers and drug users he met on his blog, along with interviews. And now Stockbridge has a solo exhibition and book, both titled Kensington Blues. His show at the Savory Gallery opens May 5th and runs through June 2nd. It features photographs of people caught in the cycle of addiction and prostitution, as well as audio recordings and written transcripts of interviews Stockbridge conducted. Two of the women Stockbridge interviewed and photographed were Tic Tac and Tootsie, 20-year-old twins who were homeless in 2009 when he met them.
They experienced all sorts of absolutely horrible stuff on the avenue. They had guys pretend to be undercover cops, and then they rape them, and they say if you don't sleep with them, they're gonna lock you up, stuff like that.
Another person Stockbridge features is Matt, who he met in McPherson Park one summer Sunday morning.
Matt he's got hepatitis, and you could see his stomach is just huge and bulging, and he's in a lot of pain, and he actually had a lot of prescription drugs with him and heroin, and he basically just posted up on this park bench in front of the library on a Sunday morning at like 11 a.m. and was just getting high and just hanging out. And then, of course, if he's out in the open, so then other addicts see him and know him, and then they come up to him and they're like, hey, let me get some, and he would hook people up.
In one photograph, Matt is injecting a friend in the neck with heroin.
It takes a lot of trust to let somebody else stick a needle in your neck. And, if that photograph doesn't illustrate that these people are literally sick, that they need this drug to not be sick, then I don't know what does.
Stockbridge says he is in favor of Philadelphia opening a safe injection facility where users could shoot up in a safe environment and receive medical care as well as referrals to treatment. A movement called the Philadelphia Overdose Prevention Initiative is underway in the city to open just such a site, partly in response to the 910 drug overdose deaths in Philadelphia last year. Although Stockbridge's work uncovers the horrors of prostitution and addiction, It doesn't reduce its subjects to mere prostitutes or drug addicts.
I'm not demonizing these people. I don't think that they're bad people. And that's the real problem, is that everybody that gets mad about this, they literally think that drug addicts are less than human. They think that prostitutes are less than human. And it's like, no, like, they're not. They're just like you and me. It's just through a series of really unfortunate circumstances, they have found themselves in a really dire situation. And what they need is help. They don't need to go to jail. They do not need to be imprisoned. We need to rethink how we think about this subject matter.
This is Courtney Harris Bond. Philadelphia photographer Jeffrey Stockbridge first started taking portraits of sex workers and drug users.
And that was The Kensington Blues by Jeffrey Stockbridge, reported by Courtney Harris Bond. We want to thank Courtney for that contribution to tonight's show. And moving into our last segment, we have Pat's Picks.
So this week, got some cool shows. Sunday, there's an interesting sort of benefit sort of show that's going to be hosted by this organization, Girls Rock Philly. Girls Rock Philly is a organization that seeks, it's a weekend day camp for women, trans people, and gender non-binary or genderqueer adults that are 19 and up in Philadelphia. So what campers do, they learn and practice instruments, and then they have these showcases. One of these showcases is going to be happening on Sunday at Philomoka. Again, that's Sunday at Philomoka, the Girls Rock Philly Showcase. Aside from that, on Friday, the band we've been listening to tonight, Bluebird, spelled without the E, is going to be playing a show with Soto, S-O-T-O, and Kid Sister. That's Friday at the Fire. It's going to be some good old moody indie rock, kind of fuzzy, kind of bluesy. Bluebird released their debut LP in January, and some really talented fingerprints on that. They got Kyle Pulley of Thin Lips. He recorded and mixed it. Keith Abrams of Pine Barrens assisted, and Ian Farmer, Modern Baseball, mastered it. So
All stars.
Yeah, real all-star cast there for the indie rock crew Bluebird. So yeah, that's what we got going on this week for Pat's Picks.
Very cool, very cool. And I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank our esteemed panel, Ty Walker, Patrick Clark, Thomas Beck, and I want to thank very special guests, once again, Jasmine A. Smith from Icon and from Starry Mansion High School. Again, we are Spirit News Radio. We're here every Wednesday from 6 to 7 right here on WPPM. Check us out in print, Spirit of the River Wards newspaper, and check us out online, spiritnews.org. Until next week, folks, don't forget, be the mouse that roared.
Darkness for an eternity, sleeplessly dreaming away the night. When will I wake from this nightmare that threatens me? Oh, well, I don't wanna